Why do you want to break the curse? There are things you can't give up on. Like what? What is it that's most precious to you?
You're my home, sweet home. 가까이 이대로 panorama no 마치.
Greetings once again, my friends, and welcome back to another episode of Geek News Marathon Night, where we are recapping the first two seasons of Fruits Basket 2019 version in order to prep for Season 3. And this is the last episode that we need to do, as this covers the second half of Season 2, which is kind of hard to go over, especially since we don't really have too many in-depth descriptions, and the fact that there's a lot of revelations that actually need to be gone over. So, if we do not do these in the right order, I apologize, but once again, I've said it a number of times in the other ones. This leaves things open for us to be able to do marathon nights on Season 1 and Season 2. But first, I am your host, Adam Mickelson, aka Drac. I hope everybody is having a wonderful day. And joining me is my lovely wife, Andrea. Andrea, how are you?
Do you need to ask?
Well, for those who don't know what she's referring to, our house recently got stricken with the coof. And unfortunately, so both of us kind of sound a little bit hoarse, but we were the ones that actually had to deal with it. And you kind of started first. So.
Well, that's expected, since I work in a job that is pretty much dealing with the brunt of the wonderful thing called COVID.
Yes, the coof. And so at that point, yes, let's just say you're good, aside from the fact that you have the...
Well, yeah, I am now just dealing with the after effects of it, like, just...
you mean the coof? She does not like that I use internet terms for these things.
I don't know.
So, yeah, I'm going to go ahead and apologize in advance. We don't have too many descriptions of what happened, and it's been a while since we've watched it, but I did go over it once again just to make sure that I covered as many of the things the pivotal things that happened so that we are ready to go for Season 3. And again, if we want to, this opens things up for us to do Season 1 and 2. So that being said, we ended on episode 12, where summer vacation was basically ending, and the Soma's vacation had ended. And funniest thing, with the rest of the episodes that we're dealing with, we're back in school. And so now with the new term beginning, we have a bunch of new things to do in regards to that, and all of them are going to be peppered throughout these episodes. First of all, they have so I believe it was for the school festival that they had to do this, but they all decide to do a play of Cinderella. I don't think they got a choice in it, right? They just got handed the script. And overall, if people are expecting this to be a traditional Cinderella portrayal, it really isn't. Just to give people kind of an example of what we're dealing with. Kyo is the prince, not Yuki, not Prince Yuki. It is Kyo.
Lucky
We're off to a great start, right? The guy who doesn't want to be prince, especially with some of the revelations that we had with him, like he doesn't want anything to do with girls right now. He's just trying to enjoy the time he has left before he has to go into the sealing chamber. Hanajima is Cinderella. You're gonna have a goth Cinderella. I still love that concept. Toru gets cast to be an evil stepsister, and I have no problem saying this. She's just too nice for the role. I didn't think it was hard to. I didn't think it was that hard to suck at being an evil stepsister, but well, Toru, you proved me wrong. You proved me wrong. And what's even better about it is she stuck with one of the Prince Yuki fan club girls as the other stepsister.
Who was the stepmother?
Stepmother. Who was the stepmother? I think that was the other Prince Yuki fan club girl in their class. Arisa ended up being the king. Yes, the king. But the best one of all, in my opinion, is the casting of the fairy godmother, whom the entire classroom agrees must be Yuki.
Oh my gosh.
Must be Yuki, and which is funny because, he's student body president now, so he's got a ton of different duties and all that. So, the role is small enough that he doesn't have to worry about it too much, but this is just another con to get Yuki in a dress. Let's just be honest. So you have that going on, and then you also have Yuki getting into his role as student body president and getting to know the people that he's going to be working with. And so that's also going to play into it, specifically with Vice President Maneba? I can't remember how you say it. Sentai guy, where he wanted everybody to pick their favorite Sentai colors. And also his sister Machi, who is the treasurer, or the secretary, one of the two. She keeps track of all the minutes and everything like that, but you find out that they actually are, brother and sister, and their parents actually got divorced. And the worst part about it is, as these episodes go on, you find out that basically, in a lot of divorce trials, like, I know parents mean well, but the kids eventually get used as cannon fodder, especially in really nasty divorces. And sometimes most of the time it's inadvertent. Like, parents don't really try that. I believe in the case of Manaba and Machi, they were intentionally used against each other. So, like he was used against his mom, and Machi was used against her dad, kind of thing. And so, while Manaba's kind of gotten over a lot of this, and just decided, his personality is the way it is because of him coming to terms with that part of his life, Machi is still very much involved in it, and very much feels like she has to be what her parents want her to be. And this is the cutest thing ever, because it's kind of like a little mini Yuki situation, and Yuki gets to watch from the outside. He gets to watch somebody go through what he went through with Akito. And so it's a weird deal. It's like fascinating to him. Like, he actually goes out of his way to try and get to know Machi a little bit more than the others, aside from Manaba, but that Manaba just because he annoys the crap out of Yuki, but also is very endearing to Yuki. They have one of those friendships. Like, they don't want to get along, but they kind of do. They kind of want to be there for each other. So you have all of this going on in the school programs and whatnot. But let's actually get into some of the other things that are being dealt with. Oh, you know what? There was one other thing in the school that we need to take care of, because if I don't mention this, you will be mad at me. Parent-teacher conferences happen. And I mentioned this in the previous episode that Ayame offered to go with Yuki for his parent-teacher conference instead of their parents, but Yuki politely bowed out and said, yeah, I'll invite my parents and let them go. To which we find out that Yuki's parents are real sons of bitches. They're so into their own lives that this is where you're thoroughly convinced, like, the nanny raised the kids, not the parent. And it's really sad, because it actually gets taken out on him that they didn't, like, the mom almost makes the mom who actually comes to the parent-teacher conference, she makes it sound like, Yuki's been nothing more than a burden to her, because she's been off doing this, that, and the other for her career, and then she has to be burdened with the fact that she has to come down to a parent-teacher conference of all things. And and in turn, we also find out that she's technically planned things out for Yuki. Apparently, they were going to send him to an all-boys school this current year in school, or something to that effect. And everything had been set out for Yuki, except Yuki doesn't want to do their plan. He wants to do things the way he's doing them. And, of course, any parent that acts like this is going to say, well, sit down, shut up, and get in line, because we've already planned this out for you, and you should be grateful, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
What kind of parents are they?
Not good ones. I think we can both agree, not good ones.
Mm-hmm.
But that's okay, because just about when I was, because I remember when we were watching this episode, just about when I was going to punch the TV screen where the mom was, the scene is saved by Ayame. Ayame comes out of nowhere, and we're both giggling on the inside. That's why we're coughing, because this is like the most hilarious moment of this whole episode. And it's just kind of the saving grace from having to deal with the witch of a mother that he had. And it basically creates a huge scene, and Yuki basically stands up to his mom and says, you know, I'm going to do things the way I want to do them. If you don't like it, you can shove it, kind of thing. So at that point, the funniest thing is, I think Yuki had kind of written off Ayame like his parents had, where he's just so odd that they don't want to be associated with him, and now he's basically had himself written off by his parents the same way. And I know that Ayame's proud of him. I'm pretty sure Hattori knows that he's proud of him, because, you know, one of the things we forget to mention is whenever Ayame does something good, Hattori eventually hears about it, or Hattori hears about it because they're good friends. So that happens, and it's actually kind of a good moment, but we also do get to see, like, the parent-teacher conferences of the various, of a few other students. You get to see Kazuma and Kyo, but not really a whole lot happens that you get out of it. What's more important is that you get Toru, who actually goes with Shigure. So instead of going with her grandfather, she goes with Shigure, and it's unfair to say that Toru doesn't have a plan. I think she does, but now we're starting to realize that, yeah, she really hasn't thought the rest of her life through, you know, like after she graduates, because it's not like she can stay at Shigure's house forever, but she's kind of living in this fantasy that she can. Safe to say, like, she wants to stay with Shigure and Yuki and Kyo, but, you know, things change, and you grow up, and you have to get a job, and all that, and she's not really thinking of that. Also, what's interesting is we start to have, I don't want to say that they're painful flashbacks in the school moments, but I think she starts to realize just how much she didn't know about her dad, and how much that actually bothers her. Because she starts, like, I'm looking for the word that starts to happen, and I think this is going to bleed into season 3. She starts having what look like are panic attacks. And whenever she has them, she flashes back to the picture in the apartment of her dad. And it's just like, okay, well, why is she doing this? And the only thing I can gather from that is she doesn't know that much about her dad, and maybe now that's painful to her. I don't know how else to describe it other than that. Do you have any other descriptor for it?
That's probably the closest thing you can go with.
Yeah, because it's just that's why I'm kind of wondering if season 3 is going to continue to answer this. I'm especially also happy about the prequel movie announced, where we actually will get to meet Toru's dad and her mom. Like, we actually will get to see how they met, how they conceived Toru, and also ultimately passed. I'm guessing is how far those will go, but yeah, so that's gonna happen. We also have a little bit of a situation going on with Arisa outside of the school, because remember, she's had a couple of meetings with a man named Kurono, and she's gained, like, a fancy with him, because and the only description that I can think of that maybe she likes him is he is just about as scatterbrained as Toru. And so I even went and looked around on this, and the speculation is that he's like a male Toru, and so she finds that fascinating. But she actually starts to like the guy, except when they have their fight at the soba noodle shop, and ultimately, she leaves and she's upset, and she still, after that, is kind of pining for him, and still wants to be able to see him, but he goes radio silent. Like, she doesn't see him at all. And the next time that we actually see him is when he is revealed as the last Soma family member of the Zodiac for Toru, but Toru doesn't know if that's the Kurano. I don't even think she knows the name of the guy until closer to the Cinderella play.
Yeah.
So you have that, but then we also have the reveal of, we had this in the summer vacation, the reveal of Izuzu Soma or Rin, the horse of the Zodiac. But now we actually get to learn a lot about her, and I don't know about you, hun, but her story kind of broke me. It's so inconceivable that I couldn't process it at the time. But let's explain it. So Rin had a happy childhood up until, I want to say, she was like 10. And her mother and her father were very devoted to her. And I believe the way that it went was like they were sitting down at dinner together, and she asked, well, are you guys happy too? Because, she's so happy with her life. And this is where it all kind of falls apart, because then we find out that her parents have never been happy at having Rin, and they've just been keeping up appearances for the Soma family and everything like that. And after Rin asks that question, things get really harsh and abusive at their household, enough so that Rin is kind of a regular visitor of the hospital. Okay, like she suffers from panic attacks. She will do very rash things that hurt her in the not suicide, but self-harm. And so she spends a lot of time at the hospital because of this, so much so that her parents kick her out, and Kagura's family bring her in. And yeah, her family's just fucked up in situation, and ultimately the reason that she is the way she is because she has also kind of dedicated herself to ending the curse. Because I think it's because she was hoping that some part of her was hoping if she ends the curse, then maybe she gets her life back, or something to that extent. But it's really hard to watch Rin's story, and it's even hard to describe because it's just so out of nowhere. Because, I mean, we've heard of the whole concept that one parent can either fully attach or reject completely, but this is where they both did. And then they became polar opposites. They became horribly abusive to her. Mm-hmm. And enough so that she started running away from home a lot and ending up injuring herself, end up in the hospital again. And ultimately her parents just said, enough, we're done taking care of you. It's like through asking one question, she unlocked the nightmare mode of her life. And I don't know how else to describe it, but it is the saddest thing to see unfold. It's also partially why she doesn't want to meet Toru, because she just doesn't believe in, things getting better. Her episodes are hard to watch.
I know,
they're super depressing. Ultimately, she does have her moment with Toru, and I think part of it is just she cries out all the pain that she's been dealing with for a few years at that point. And Toru also admits to Rin she's looking for a way to end the curse, and so they kind of both silently decide to work together to figure out how to do this, and Rin kind of explains all the things that she's been doing to try and figure it out. She's gone to Soma Records, she's gone to Shigure, because she thought Shigure might know something. She's gone to Hattori. She's gone to everybody, and she really hasn't come to any conclusions. But they've decided, okay, we'll work together, and we'll see if we can figure this out. I should also mention that another thing that does happen within all of this is the Toru's class takes a trip to Kyoto, which I believe is actually a thing in Japan. Like, if you grow up in Tokyo, then you go to Kyoto for like a fall trip. And it's supposed to be kind of a romantic thing, as your school years end. And I think it's the opposite for Kyoto students. They go to Tokyo and do that. But I'm not 100% on that, but I do know like Tokyo students do that for Kyoto. because Kyoto is the other big area in Japan that is beautiful, the way I've been told. Like that's where a lot of the Shinto shrines are, and a lot of the stuff that looks keenly Japanese. People go to Kyoto for that. But so we have a couple of moments happen out of that. We actually do get a little bit more deeper into Kyo and Toru. And by that I mean we kind of get the feeling that Toru kind of feels the same way for Kyo as Kyo feels for her, and Kyo wants to tell her, but he can't because Akito is a bitch. There's no easy way to say it, so I'll just say it the way it is. So you have a lot of that going on. Jeez, and I'm trying to make sure that I don't cover anything up, because again, like, the descriptions that we have are very vague on what happens in each one of these episodes, but I think we're covering all the main plot points. The other thing is, I believe, just before the play, Toru kind of suspects that the boy Kurano that Arisa met might be Kurano Soma. She's not 100% on this, but she is trying to get a hold of him, or she resolves to try to get a hold of him, because Arisa's kind of tearing herself up, waiting for him to come back, and he's not showing up at all. So at that point, like, she goes to the residence herself. She enlists Momiji to try and get something to Kurano, like a little note saying, Arisa is not doing good, can you go see her, kind of thing, or she's gonna have a play, maybe you want to attend. And it's very difficult to get it to Kurano, but they eventually do. Ultimately, though, the play does happen, and I wish I remember every single silly thing that happened in that play, because it was ridiculous.
That's the thing with the whole that play episode. I love those types of kind of like filler episodes where they're just downright funny.
Yes, and the play was basically that, because if you were expecting Cinderella to go beat for beat the way it's supposed to, you don't get that
they
at all.
Had to
here.
pretty much
this is
improv
all the way. It's improv with Yuki being the fairy godmother. It's improv with Saki Hanajima being obsessed with food, and so at that point, like, she is more interested in having food than dancing at the ball.
And Toru,
Toru trying to be an evil stepsister and sucking at it. It's great. It's wonderful. And one of the defining moments, in my opinion, is when Arisa kind of vents her frustrations with Kurano out of nowhere on Kyo while trying to be the king of the prince, Like, it threw her apart. She kind of vents the fact that she'd really like to see Kurano again. And I have to ask this honestly, Andrea. If you were sitting in the audience of this play, like, what would your reaction be? Would you hang on it and say, like, okay, I can't wait to see what happens next, or would it be so out of normal for you that you'd actually have to leave because it was giving you, like, a headache? Because, like, I would stay.
I would
personally
stay.
Because I like improv, and so at that point, like, when we find ways to be able to do new hooks on old stories, I actually kind of enjoy it. And the reason that this was improv and why it was so good is because you were taking the personalities of the characters in Fruits Basket and putting them into roles that did not make sense. And so at that point, you're just like, I wonder what Saki Cinderella is going to do. I wonder what Arisa the King is going to do. I can't say that I would actually leave the play or have a headache from it. Okay, after being so rudely interrupted by our children, because, that's what they do. We were talking about that Cinderella play. So you would have watched it. And when we were watching it, the episode, when we were watching the episode happen, like, what was going through your head? Is it just that it's silly, or that it's different?
I thought it was silly.
And different. Yes, it was. I especially love the fact that
and it was so unpredictable.
It was, like, the whole thing was. Because, I mean, you had a goth gown made for Cinderella for the ball, because it was all black. And I especially love that the class was like, well, you're going to have to wear a white gown to be able to do this. She's like, I will not. So you had that, and then anytime food is showing up, she has to go have it. So like, you're supposed to go dance with the prince now. Screw that, I'm eating food.
Wasn't it also in that play that Toru was practically saying stuff that she never thought?
Yes, this is actually where she actually I can't remember how it happens, but she actually kind of vaguely hints that she might have feelings for Kyo.
That's right.
And it throws everybody off. And I think, if I remember correctly, after the play, she tries to go and fix it, and she can't find Kyo anywhere. So I have to recommend people watch that episode. It is so out of nowhere on so many, in so many ways. It's ridiculous, how much crap happens. That's why I like the episode's title. It's Cinderella-ish. But then we actually go into the biggest reveals of this season, and I think are going to play very much into season 3. So, remember how I said that there was a note that she was trying to get to Kurano? Well, somebody recorded the Cinderella play. And so she tries to get a copy over to Kurano. And, like, utilizes Momiji and all that to try and get him a copy of the Cinderella play. And ultimately gets to meet Kurano alone. And that's the Somas make that very clear. It's not easy to do. Kurano is pretty much kind of joined at the hip with Akito. It's not easy to get him alone to be able to talk about this. And she actually does get him alone and and is able to give him the movie, but also is trying to explain to him that Arisa misses him and wants to be able to see him again, and why can't you possibly make this work? And we get to see a little bit of why Kurano is so joined at the hip with Akito, and why it's actually like the biggest chain around him. So Kurano is supposed to be the rooster of the Zodiac. Except in the last episode, we kind of get the impression that he can't transform anymore. He didn't like transforming in front of people, I believe. I believe we know that because he is the rooster, but he appears as like a little sparrow kind of thing, like a little bird. He doesn't come off as like a full-on rooster, but it almost seems like he doesn't suffer from the curse anymore. And we even get to see a memory way back when young Akito met Kurano and got to have some conversations with him. And then ultimately, something happens between them. We're not sure what, but it unfurls, it unhinges Akito to the point where she's like immediately, or he's afraid he's immediately going to leave him and that he's no longer bound to him and everything like that. And so we find out that Kurano has basically been torturing himself by staying with Akito. And yeah, they kind of make it sound like maybe he no longer suffers from the curse. And we're not sure why. And it's so secret, I don't even know if Shigure knows that this is the case. But also, I kind of just let it slip. The other big reveal that we get is Akito is a she. Akito is not a he. Akito is a she. As we get to see, like, I remember the last scene very vividly. It's like, like he usually is in that family kimono that he has to wear around the house. And we find out it's a little open and, well, he's got boobs. He's got boobicles. And so at that point, Akito is a she, and it's also kind of implied that there might be some shame based around that. And I'm not sure why. But these are the big reveals at the end of the season that I think are going to tie into season 3 is that maybe Kurano is the key to breaking the curse because he's already broken it. Did you not get that impression, or because you look confused?
I'm just trying to remember.
Because they have that moment where it looks like he may not be as attached to Akito as the other people are, and that unhinges Akito, and she makes him promise that he will never leave him, that he will never leave her. And that's like the sign of Kurano's torment.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, when he goes and he gets the disc and he goes and watches the play on his computer, and I believe, if I'm remembering correctly, as soon as Arisa's outburst happens, he immediately remembers the promise that he made to Akito and kind of cries because of it. Almost like, the promise that he made to Akito is not what he wanted. And so that's his torment. That's his torture. Is that he can't go out and live his own life because Akito is afraid that he would leave forever. Which is just, I would totally leave this bitch forever. I would. She is so abusive.
Mm-hmm.
But he apparently doesn't see it that way, and I don't know. What did you think with the reveal of Akito being a girl, like being a woman?
I was confused on whether if it was a he or she.
Yeah, exactly. And also whether or not there might be a shame attached to it. I mean, there had to have been other female Zodiac members that were God, that were the head of the family, right? There had to have been.
Yeah.
Because this has been going on for generations, and they make it sound like it's never been a thing. Like, the head of the family has always been male. And it's weird. That's why, in a lot of cases, I think we're going to learn a lot more into this background, and maybe, just maybe, we'll also get to know, like, what Shigere's plan is in all of this. Because the other person that's really close to Akito is Shigere. And he almost makes it sound like throughout these 2 seasons that he's been playing that against her. Wasn't
there an episode where Toru actually comes across and meets Momiji's sister?
Well, this is actually kind of part of the whole Kurano thing. Like, she's trying to get to know Kurano, and it turns out that Momiji's sister Momo has been secretly visiting Momiji because, as we learn throughout this whole thing, Momiji plays the violin, and he actually plays it really well. And it turns out that Momo is really intrigued with Momiji. I can't remember what the resolution of that was, but I don't think he got to tell her that he was her brother, but ultimately kind of resolves to be friends with her. And that's okay with Momichi's dad. But yeah, it's all connected with the whole Kurano thing.
Isn't that how she found out about Kurano?
Yeah, she goes to try and find Kurano, and Momichi finds her and takes her back to his place, and then we find out about the whole little subplot with Momo. And so we get some of that, and I don't think any of that's resolved yet either. Because I don't think, like, the mom can't know, because wouldn't that just undo the hypnosis? I don't know. There's a lot of questions still yet to be answered. Also, the other one that's surprising to me is the little plot thread of Machi and Yuki. Yuki almost seems like he wants to go in there and help her, and through helping Machi, he helps himself in that process, and I'm kind of intrigued with that too. I will tell you the one story that makes me the saddest, and that is Kyo right now, and that is that he has basically resigned himself to spend the rest of his days alone and in torment, instead of admitting his feelings for Toru, which he now kind of has evidence that she might feel the same way, but he still doesn't want to hurt her, because he's going to have to spend the rest of his days in this sealing chamber. That's the other one that's I'm kind of racking my brain about, is like, how can he avoid that fate? But I don't know. I mean, season 3 is on the horizon for us, and at that point we can learn the future of the curse. We can I'm kind of hoping at the end of this, because I haven't read the manga, and I don't remember if people spoiled this for me, but I'm hoping that the curse gets broken and that these people can live their lives again. I'm trying to think if there were any other loose threads that we haven't hit, but I think that's pretty much it.
But if you guys want us to revisit that sometime, you have to.
Well, that's why we left this as open-ended as we did, is so that we can actually do this. Now, granted, at that point, we'll have watched season 3, so we'll know how things end up. And so maybe that's a whole other conversation that we can have that makes it more interesting. But yeah, I think that pretty much covers it for this one. So this is the last pre-episode. When we join you guys next time, it will be after have watched an episode of Fruits Basket Season 3, as well as 3 episodes of Rising of the Shield Hero Season 1, which, by the way, I'm excited for both, because I think we'll both have a really fun time with that. So until then, thank you guys so much for your continued support. We hope you guys will continue to support us as we go down this journey, and we will see you guys for the next episode of Geek News Marathon Night. Take care.